people were to go home today and to stand by your sink and begin filling up 1,870,000 gallons of water, you'd be standing there for approximately 3.5 years. It's a long time. That's the amount of water that flows over Niagara Falls every second. Every second. Niagara Falls is located right here between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario on the Niagara River. The Niagara River is an international border between Canada and the United States. It's approximately 35 miles in length, and the falls is about halfway between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. As the water is flowing down the river, it comes to a vertical drop of 167 feet, straight down. This is known as Niagara Falls. Here's a picture of the falls. One 167 feet straight down. The falls together, there's two falls actually, the American Falls and the Canadian Falls. Out of all the water that goes over them, 94% of it goes over the Canadian Falls, which is also called the Horseshoe Falls. The falls together are the third largest falls in the world, and they are the largest falls in the United States, measured in discharge by volume of water going over. They are, the falls is a very, it attracts approximately 3,500,000 people annually. And out of these 3,500,000 people, there's some of them that are fools. There's been attempts to go over the falls in barrels, and people have tight-roped across the falls, and many people have tried swimming across the top and the bottom. And some of them have succeeded, others are now dead. Besides just the falls and the rapids, there's other attractions also. They have, on each side of the river, there's many parks and museums. There's also Devil's Hole, which is right at the base of the falls. The turbulence down there is unbelievable. It's approximately 160 foot deep, the water level. And for unfortunate people that have gone over the falls, they sometimes survive the fall, but they will stay submerged for up to a week because of the turbulence. There is the whirlpool, which is about 3 miles downriver, and the depth of that is approximately 125 foot, and the width on top is 75 feet. There's also the Cave of the Winds, which is behind the wall of water on the American side of the falls. This can be visited. The inside dimensions vary from 75 feet to 100 feet. The falls is also much more than just a tourist attraction. Back in 1895, the first large turbo hydroelectric was installed at the falls. It was installed in the United States, and it was installed at Niagara Falls. Since then, Niagara Falls has been one of the world's major hydroelectric power plants in the world. Right now, Niagara Falls serves approximately 21,000 square miles in New York State on the American side of the falls, and on the Canadian side it serves parts of Ontario and a little bit of Quebec. The diversion of water back in the early 1900s when this hydroelectric plant was put into operation has lessened the amount of water flowing over the falls, which in turn has lessened the amount of erosion. The erosion starts from the bottom of the falls, from all the turbulence down there, and erodes away the weak sedimentary rock, and the rock on top falls down, and this is what maintains the falls. And it just continually erodes away. It used to erode away at a rate of 5 foot a year until the early 1900s. And then, from then on, when they diverted some of the water, it now erodes at approximately 2.3 feet a year. The falls originated approximately 7 miles downstream from where it is right now. And just this constant erosion creeps upstream. It's estimated that when the falls erodes 2 more miles upstream, it will be reduced in height from 167 foot, which is the maximum height right now, to 100 feet. When it is reduced 5 miles further upstream, the falls could be completely reduced to nothing but rapids. The Niagara Gorge varies from 200 to 350 feet in height on each side, and the total gorge represents approximately 25,000 years of erosion, and that's the estimated age of the falls. The life expectancy of the falls right now, considering its present rate of erosion, is approximately 12,000 years. So in that time, Niagara Falls, as we know it now, will no longer exist. And no one will be able to enjoy anything that people today come to see. If anyone here has ever had a fight with someone or broken a hole on a wall by throwing some object, there's no reason to panic. I'm going to show you how to fix it. It's very simple. This right here is a piece of drywall, which is the same thing that's behind this wall right here. And it's in every room, in everyone's house, I imagine. I'm going to break a hole in it right now. Start. Okay, here's your hole. It's in the wall. First thing you have to do is take a knife and chop around so you have a nice, well-defined hole. It'll be a little different when you're working in your house because you can't reach behind, but also the wall it won't be moving. And you just pull away. Takes a couple minutes. Now you got a relatively well-defined hole that you can work with. Take some screen. You can buy this at any hardware store. This piece costs under $1. And you have to cut a piece of screen to fit approximately the same diameter of this hole. And I've got a piece prepared because it would take me too long to cut this to fit this screen. I've got this piece prepared for this hole right here. You want to fit the screen in here. Again, you won't be able to reach from behind, but it won't be under time limit or so cheap. You fit the screen in there, no problem. Also, take some nails, get them in any hardware store, little 2-penny nail, and just secure the screen so it won't fall out when you apply your first coat of plaster. At least 3 nails, maybe 4. Just so you got a relatively secure backing. Okay, you want to make sure that the screen doesn't protrude beyond the surface of the wood or the nails, because then that'll show on the finished product. Alright, you got that. Let me set this down here for a moment. Now you got to mix up some plaster, which again is no problem. You can buy this patching plaster costs me just under $2 at the local hardware store again. And it's relatively easy to mix up. All it takes is water, and it's all water soluble, so after you can use it in anything, and afterwards all you have to do is clean it off under the faucet, and it takes a couple minutes to get the right texture. You just gotta keep adding a little more. So right now it's very watery. You can't see it, but you gotta use your imagination. So you add a little more. Add a lot more. Okay, keep mixing. And it'll get to a relatively good texture. This is still going to be a little too watery. As you can see, it's just so good. So you add a little more. And just mix it up. Again, it's all water soluble, so any pan you use will clean up very easy. Alright, this looks pretty good. Now the texture, it's very formable, and it's not quite too slippery. You can take any straight edge. I have a piece of cardboard here. Take some of this plaster patch, just slap it in here. It doesn't have to look pretty the first time because it's not going to be, you're not finished yet. So just fill it in. Good enough the first time through, because when it dries, this is going to shrink, and it's not going to be extremely, it won't be a finished product. You have to do some more work on it. So you set it down and you let it dry. You'll have a beer, probably wait overnight. You come back and you have something like this. Now it's hard, so you've got to back it. And you can work with this piece. This is a little better. You start again, make some more plaster. Also, after this piece is done, you might want to sand a little bit in case there's anything overlapping. You don't need that. And you apply some more plaster. In this one, you have to spend a little longer on it. You fill in the gaps where it shrunk. And try and get it relatively level with the surface. This piece of drywall isn't in very good shape, but it will do. Okay, now you got a piece. Use a little more. If you don't want to be short. If anything, let it overlap, so you can sand it off. All right, you get this piece. It's still not very nice. You gotta just take your time and work with it. That's not bad. Now you want to take a rag, you wet it, get around the edges so you don't have to mess with this when you start again. And if you're dealing with a real wall with some good paint, it'll work a lot better. It'll look a lot better than this here. Okay, you let this dry. And when you come back, this is what you've got, something similar to this. And you want to sand it some more, because this is going to be the finished product. Sandpaper you can get at any hardware store again, very cheap. Take a sanding block. You don't have to have this, you can use a piece of wood just so you have a flat surface. And sand away. And this has already been a little bit pre-sanded to save you some time, but I'll show you. Sand it until it's relatively flat with the surface. Nice smooth finish. Okay? And you want to clean this up. Still doesn't look really nice, but you're not done. Now we can paint it. Paintbrush. And you'll see, hopefully, after you paint it, that it should look almost unnoticeable. If you were to take more time and apply possibly another coat after this one, it would be practically unnoticed. But this is about as good as it's going to show up. But it does look a hell of a lot better than a hole in the wall. Here you go, you have a finished product. It's not extremely pretty, but it won't catch, you won't see it when you're passing by on horses. And you may not even know there was a hole, but if you look in the bag, you see for sure there was. You won't be able to see that in your house. And it might save you some. So next time you break a hole in the wall, don't panic, just fix it. The Spell of the Yukon by Robert Service. I wanted the gold, and I sought it. I scrabbled and mucked like a slave. Was it famine or scurvy? I fought it. I hurled my youth into a grave. I wanted the gold, and I got it. Came out with a fortune last fall. But somehow life's not what I thought it. And somehow the gold isn't all. No, there's the land. Have you seen it? It's the cussedest land that I know. From the big dizzy mountains that scream to the deep death-like valleys below. Some say God was tired when he made it. Some say it's a fine land to shun. Maybe, but there's some as would trade it for no land on earth. And I'm one. You come to get rich. Damn good reason. You feel like an exile at first. You hate it like hell for a season. And then you are worse than the worst. It grips you like some kinds of sinning. It twists you from foe to a friend. It seems it's been since the beginning. It seems it will be till the end. I've stood in some mighty-mouthed hollow that's plump, full of hush to the brim. I've watched the big husky sun wallow in crimson and gold and grow dim, until the moon set the pearly peaks gleaming and the stars tumbled out neck and crop. And I've thought that surely I was dreaming with a piece of the world piled on top. The summer, no sweeter was ever, the sunshiny woods all thrill. The grayling aleap in the river, the bighorn asleep on the hill. The strong like life that never knows harness, the winds where the caribou call, the freshness, the freedom, the farness. Oh God, how I'm stuck on it all. The winter, the brightness that blinds you, the white land locked tight as a drum, the cold fear that follows and binds you, the silence that bludgeons you dumb, the snows that are older than history, the woods where the weird shadows slant, the stillness, the moonlight and the mystery. I've bade them goodbye, but I can't. There's a land where the mountains are nameless, and the rivers all run God knows where, and the lives are eerie and aimless, and the deaths and deaths that just hang by a hair. There are hardships that nobody reckons, and there are valleys unpeopled and still. There's a land, oh, it beckons and beckons, and I want to go back, and I will. They're making my money diminish. I'm sick of this taste of champagne. Thank God when I'm skinned to a finish, I'll pike to the Yukon again. I'll fight, and you bet it's no shame fight. It's hell, but I've been there before. And it's better than this by a damn sight. So me for the Yukon once more. There's gold, and it's haunting and haunting. It's luring me on as of old. Yet it isn't the gold that I'm wanting, so much as just finding the gold. It's the great, big, broad land way up yonder. It's the forests where the silence has lease. It's the beauty that thrills me with wonder. is the stillness, which fills me with peace. Tourism. It's basically thousands of people traveling all over the world doing and seeing things that they normally can't. Well, one of the most popular tourist attractions in the United States is Niagara Falls. Approximately 3,500,000 people visit Niagara Falls every year. And I'll show you right where it is located. Niagara Falls is right here between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario on the Niagara River. The Niagara River happens to be an international border between the United States and Canada. Here is a picture of Niagara Falls. You can see how beautiful it is for yourself. This is a picture of the Canadian side of the falls. Niagara Falls is actually made up of two waterfalls. The American and the Canadian side. The falls are separated by a small island called Goat Island. 94% of the water which flows over Niagara Falls flows over Horseshoe Falls. Niagara Falls together is the third largest waterfalls in the world and the largest waterfalls in the United States, measured and discharged by volume. Approximately 1,870,000 gallons of water fall over Niagara Falls every second. That's a lot of water. The width of the Niagara River at the falls is approximately a mile wide, and the maximum vertical drop of the falls is 167 feet straight down. Other attractions besides the site of the falls themselves are, in particular, some of the people that come to visit the falls. Many of them, not many, a few of them that have come to visit the falls have tried such stunts as tightroping across the falls, going over the waterfalls in barrels, swimming across the Niagara River above and below Niagara Falls. Some of them have succeeded. Others that have messed up and gone over the falls have been known to stay submerged for up to a week and a half by the turbulent waters below the falls. Needless to say, when they finally made it up for air, they were a little too late. Niagara Falls is also known, besides just a tourist attraction, as one of the world's greatest hydroelectric power producing plants. The first hydroelectric turbines that were installed in the United States were installed at Niagara Falls in 1895. Those same turbines today are providing New York State, providing 21,000 square miles of New York State and much of Ontario and Quebec with electrical power. Another interesting fact about the falls is that it is continuously creeping upstream. The falls originated 7 miles downstream from where it is today, and this represents a total erosion rate of approximately 25,000 years. Before the hydroelectric turbines were installed, the falls used to erode at a rate of approximately 5 feet a year. And after the power plant was installed, the diversion of water from above the falls to run the turbines has lessened the rate to approximately 2.3 feet per year. The estimated life expectancy of Niagara Falls is approximately 12,000 years from today. And after 12,000 years, no one will be able to enjoy Niagara Falls like we can today. It is estimated when the falls goes back 2 miles, erodes back 2 more miles, that it will only be a 100-foot drop from what it is. Right now it's 167. And in 5 more miles it will be completely reduced to rapids. And then no one will be able to enjoy what today a lot of people take for granted. So I suggest next time you feel like becoming a tourist, you go take a look at Niagara Falls. It's worthwhile.
Mr. Connolly, we heard Mr. Lambrianidis first, did we not?
Yes, we did. He discussed voting. I would be good for some vote.
I think so. let's look at the motivational steps, at the action that each speech urged us to. Mr. Lambrianidis urged us to vote, as you said. Mr. Kong, what did he want us to do?
Mr. Kong wanted us to join TKE.
Right.
And
Mr. Texera?
he urged us to exercise. Exercise.
Exercise. Start today. Did we just hear 3 speeches?
Yes.
Just 3. Okay. Okay. What would you say to Mr. Lambrianidis?
Okay, I would start out with, he had a good introduction. And initially his voice was good, and then he let us right into believing, or he let us know right away what the subject was.
What would you say about his voice? We've talked to Mr. Lambrianidis about his voice before, haven't we? We've talked to several people in class about voices. Would you say anything specific about his today?
His voice seemed a little better.
I think so. I'd say a lot better. Specifically, what would you compliment him?
He seemed to raise his voice more, in particular, certain.
More intensity to his voice, more force without over-projection or over-raising the volume. He had more vocal variety. He had a wider pitch range. Did you work on it, Mr. Lambrianidis? It worked, didn't it? We think so. We think so. Look at this. What does that say?
Much improved vocal variety.
You betcha. What else would you tell him?
Okay, he had a statistical appeal. He started off initially.
Actually started off with that quotation. You remember the quotation? Yeah, he said, government is like a fire. Wasn't that it? Then he ended with that too. You know what that's called? It's called an envelope. When you surround the speech or a piece of literature or a piece of writing or any discourse of any sort, when it starts and ends with the same thing, with a reference back, you're enveloping the speech. And it's an envelope. It's just a literary term. It works well. He used it to his advantage. It was not mechanical. It was very nice. It worked well.
Okay. The statistical appeal that I was referring to was you related to Greece when they fought to vote, and then people today have freedom to vote and they don't. And I thought that was.
It was especially effective because this is Mr. Lambrianidis, not Mr. Sotlanto talking to you, and he's from Greece. And this is important. We know that. So he can talk about ancient Greece with some sense of personality, in addition to which he's not talking about just free men and non-free men, free men and slaves. And the important use of the word slaves, I think it was effective.
Yeah. He also related to Russians.
Yeah.
Communist countries.
Yeah.
They have no freedom. And if he relates to all these, it makes you think maybe if you skip voting, you are passing on more than just the right to vote.
Mr. Lambrianidis did a funny thing in his speech, at least it struck me as funny. It's as if he almost forgot his text. And he cited an ill about people who don't vote. And he said, it makes me so mad, you know, I just can't stand it. What do you think that was all about?
I think he was stressing the importance of the vote.
He was indeed, and he was responding to that issue how? Emotionally, right? And trying to spark in us the same emotional response. It was an emotional appeal, a clever one, a cute one. It showed the personality, it was effective, and it was slight. It was slight. There wasn't an emotional response to that issue other than his own emotional response. So he gave it to us, and I think it worked fine.
The one emotional appeal that I wasn't too fond of was when he said, if you don't vote, it's only out of ignorance. And I felt that was, if I had missed the vote last quarter, I don't consider myself ignorant.
It could be ignorance or apathy or laziness or something like that. We would like that modified. He gave a lot of explanations in his speech, but he gave them in persuasive ways, didn't he? He would take information that was explanatory, and he would make it into a persuasive appeal. And that's the key to making a good persuasive speech. He took the body of the speech of an informative speech and made it persuasive, effectively so. What do you think about his gestures?
His gestures, in the beginning, he held his hands like this. It was just nervous, this is what that was. But then he loosened up after a couple minutes.
Yes, he did. He had a lot of literal gestures, quite a few literal gestures. And at two different times, he would point his finger at us, and it was a little bit weak. All your gestures worked for me, except this finger pointing, which occasionally I found weak. When you watch your videotape, take a look at it and see if it's convincing. What are you going to do? And you, all of you, have to vote, not this sort of wagging finger. It's not even as strong as scolding. He very well anticipated the negative arguments of his audience, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, he raised several of their arguments and contradicted them. What about Mr. Bayraktar? Mr. Bayraktar is Syrian, right? Did you say? Is Syrian, Mr. Sankar? Where are you from? And Ms. Sotanto? We have 3 people who can't vote in class. Can't vote in any election in this country. Did Mr. Lamborghini just take them into consideration? He did to a degree. He said, you know, we have a student election coming up on campus soon for student government. And the student elections are just practice for, getting ready for, in the same process as national and local election. Now, this is where you needed to go further, Mr. Connolly, I think, and then say, some of you are not American citizens, and you cannot vote in state, city, or federal elections. However, even though you're not citizens of this country, you can vote here on campus, the microcosm of our society, and in many of your own referenda in the community. You don't have to be a citizen to vote. If you're a resident here, then you can vote. So if you live here and are a resident, all you have to do is vote. We would like for him to have told us a little about registration to vote, wouldn't we? A word or two about voter registration. That would have been helpful to us. Forceful and dynamic delivery, I thought, especially that final motivational step. What do you think? Vote. Yeah. Vote in the coming elections. Strong, firm. You like it?
Yes, I did.
Good. Audience, what would you say to Mr. Lambrides?
You wrote a lot down. Had him worried.
What do you think he's saying? I don't know either.
He had long pauses in between. He had long pauses in between, like he forgot something. He kept forgetting.
He did. Yeah. He did. Two or three of the
It's only
speakers today. Two or three of the speakers had memory problems. It doesn't keep them from doing a good job. It just means that they're a little nervous, maybe a little less prepared than they should be.
Very good job, George.
Why, Mr. Texera?
Why? Because I enjoyed it. I think he fulfilled his objective in persuading us.
Fine. Comments, Mr. Lambrides? We heard Mr. Kong.
Yes, Mr. Kong spoke on why we should join TKE, Teak fraternity. And he had a good introduction. He started right off with a emotional appeal, referring to Ronald Reagan.
That's an appeal to authority.
Appeal to authority.
Appeal to authority.
And other persons of interest involved in members of fraternities.
Then his next appeal, he said, help me analyze this, Mr. Connolly. He said, did you know that 30% of this nation's executives, leaders of major businesses have been members of fraternities? Is that a statistical appeal, an appeal to statistics, or is it a different sort of an appeal?
I would classify that as a little of both, partially statistical, because the 30%,
Right.
Right there, but also an appeal to authority, because everyone in an executive position is someone you might look
A bit
up
of an
to.
authority figure, yes. I think more important than the two of those, though I agree with you about the two of those, I think it's an emotional appeal. We're appealing there. Look at this guy back there. There's an executive sort of guy, you know. If I appeal to this guy out there, he's going to think, I'm an executive. Boy, darn right, I'll join a fraternity. I think it's as much an emotional appeal, at least the way he made it, as it is a statistical or an authority appeal. I think it worked effectively in all three hands.
He also, I believe, another emotional appeal at Fordham University everyone here is, most people are familiar with the movies that put fraternities down, and he took that example and turned it around and said that's not exactly what fraternities are all about.
Yes, he had several opportunities to anticipate the objections of the audience and diffuse them, and he took those opportunities well. I wrote down, what about the woman in your audience? Include her. As soon as I got it written down, he did. He said, you know, for the ladies in our audience, we have Teak Little Sister programs in which we do this, that, and the other. I would have also liked you to have acquainted Miss Sotanto with the rest of us and say, and of course there are sororities at many campuses that you can join. Here on campus, there's only one woman's sorority or organization, and that's the Society of Women Engineers, which you can certainly join, although it's not a social fraternity like Teak. Give it at least that much time, okay? Not just little sisters who come and party with, something more than that.
A logical appeal he came to us with was how it's good for your resume.
Yes, sir?
And that is important to everyone who's a college student. The resume is important to you. That was a good step.
What's the difference between a social fraternity, a professional fraternity, and an honor fraternity?
Gee, I don't know.
Which is Teak?
Gee, I don't know.
We need to know.
I didn't say Teak is some social.
Clarify the difference for us between the three, okay? I can't get in. I'm afraid of the hazing. I mean, they make you, sleep in a graveyard overnight, swallow raw pieces of meat.
It states in
they
the
hit you
California
with
law
pies.
that hazing is illegal.
Tell us. Tell us. You told us that $90 a month was a lot of money to pay. Why should we pay that much money? Now, anticipate and allay our fears of hazing and of pledging. Okay? That's important. Because some of us have heard those rumors and believe them and think they're true. What else would you say, Mr. Conley?
I'd say overall it was a very good speech.
Can all of us except Ms. Sotanto get in? Are there requirements for GPA or for academic standing or for nationality or for major?
Be a nice guy.
Tell us, Mr. Kong. We need to know that. I mean, we've got 3 guys out here who are not American. Can they get in? We've got people out here who've got GPAs under 3.0. Can they get in? We've got people who are ET majors or CIS or business management majors. Can they get in? Tell us. Now what are we going to do to it? What would you like to say to Mr. Kong?
I don't know what's convincing.
I did too.
Pardon? How the speed was convincing.
It was dynamic. You want to see me do an imitation, Mr. Kong? This is how Mr. Kong comes on. He comes out here and then he stands. Isn't it like this? Isn't that the way he does it? Slight angle, 1 foot out, weight slightly shifted forward like this, like he's just about to push off and start to run. That gives you some physical energy, and he has it all along. And he turns his head out like this, and this is the way he stands most of the time. And it gives him a physical vitality and energy. He's got his weight so that he can balance it like this and shift it like this. And it gives him a physical and a vocal intensity and energy that he maintains throughout the speech, and which he recovers when he goes into those periods when he has momentary lapses of memory. It works effectively for him. We don't want it to become his pose or the Kong stance or anything like that. We want it to be genuine and natural and such. We've seen him do it for 2 or 3 speeches now. And it's a device, but it's a device that effectively helps him. However, we would like to see a little bit better handout, wouldn't we? He tells us that the activities are at the house, but he doesn't tell us where the house is. We need the address and the phone number of the house. We would like to avoid the apostrophe on Delta Chi's. On the 16th of the month, study night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Where? We want to come study with you. Where? At the house? Tell us. And on the 17th, the infamous Teak Rush party. If it's infamous, I don't want to attend. I don't want to be associated with anything infamous. Famous is good. Infamous is something that is famous for being bad or evil. I don't want to come to anything bad or evil. Is it infamous?
Well, for crazy party standpoint. I was supposed to put quotation marks on that.
Would have helped. Would have helped. Would like a better handout. It doesn't invite us. It doesn't inform us. It tells us what you guys are doing, and it excludes us. Okay?
It's a rush calendar.
No, sir, it's not. It's an informing calendar that's excluding. The reason it is because nowhere on this are we invited. Nowhere in there is an address or a phone number urging us to come. There's no y'all come down at the bottom of it or anything like that. Okay? We need to be exhorted to come. Please. Mr. Cohen, comments or questions?
I'm going to say the handout I didn't have to have before it came in.
It looks it.
That's all I can say.
We believe it.
I also have to say that, to be honest, I forgot one point on my outline.
We know.
To-
We were aware of that. We don't mind it. Sorry that you forgot it. We would have liked to have heard it, but we know you had some memory problems due to lack of preparation and nervousness, but you gave a good speech. Mr. Texera spoke to us. What's he want us to do, Mr. Connolly?
He wants us to get in shape, stay in shape for our health.
Starting when?
Starting right now.
Yeah, starting today. Exercise. Start today.
He started off with a quote, authority, and it stated, could you elaborate on that quote?
No, sir, couldn't.
I forgot to write the quote down myself, but it was, someone of authority said that we should get in shape.
Chief Consultant
There we go.
to the President of
that's
the
right.
United States.
Oh, yeah, Chief
Charles
Consultant,
Wilkinson.
long pause. No, Chief Consultant for the United States, long pause, on physical fitness. Yeah, I remember that. Fine. So an appeal to authority. Let's talk about the appeals that Mr. Texera, the one appeal that Mr. Texera and Mr. Kong both had before they ever said a word. What was that? Look at it. Oh, Lord. Exactly. They both had an appeal to authority. How?
In their presentation.
In their costume. Mr.
Costume.
Texera is wearing, what, black Reeboks or something, some gym shoes. He's wearing sweatpants. And he's wearing one of those high-priced workout shirts. Yeah, Lacoste, chemise, yeah. And Mr. Kong is wearing the emblem of his fraternity on his shirt, which he showed to us. It looks like Joe College, and that's just fine. So both of these guys had appeals to authority. Who was the authority? Themselves. That's who. Themselves. If you were going to, if you wanted someone to speak to you about airline safety, wouldn't you want him wearing an airline pilot's cap and wings on his epaulets or something like that? Sure. Of course. That's what all that's for. Appeal to authority. Well, his costume was appropriate. We like that. What would you say about his vocal delivery, his speech style?
The speech, his voice was in a good context. I felt the speed was good at some times, but it didn't vary much. It was, if you could have sped up a little bit now and then to stress it. But it was good. It wasn't too fast where we had to strain to catch it.
We would like it was very easily understood, but we would like Mr. Texera to be a little more conversational with us and a little less elocutionary. In the old days of speech in the United States, every word was said individually, and every phrase was to be understood and comprehended well by everyone. That is why you had this articulated and very phony style of speech. Where do you hear it still? By these idiots on the radio who talk like this. That's where. That's where. Well, we didn't hear Mr. Texera sounding like one of those forced idiots, but we did hear him clipping every single syllable and every single word very articulated and very easily understood. But at the time, it did not seem like discourse or conversation. It seemed like elocution. See the difference, Mr. Texera? Talk to us. You're a nice guy. You talk to me all the time. Talk to us. Let us understand you. Let it be easily understood. But talk to us.
He had some good emotional appeals,
Such as?
such as when he referred to if you don't exercise, you can have lower back pain, which could cause damage the rest of your life, something in that nature. And you rub down them can also be physically
Bad for your posture.
very bad. And that makes someone thinks of that and they think maybe I should exercise.
I was writing on Mr. Collins' critique sheet. Mr. Texera was ready to speak. And you even said, remember that? What was he doing when you told him that?
He was standing up, nervous, anticipating.
Do you remember what he was doing? He was doing some flexing or tensing exercises or something. What was it you were up to, Mr. Texera? Almost like exercises. I wouldn't have minded seeing him up here and like a student in my other class who was even crouching down and doing some warm-up exercises like that. Not because he needs to exercise, but because it's a way of suggesting the atmosphere for this. In the interim between the two speeches. He didn't know he would have the time for it, of course, but he did. It would have been a nice way to fill it, an effective introduction. What do you think of the visual aid?
Visual aid was excellent. The only thing I couldn't determine were the units on the numbers. I wasn't sure what those were, but it was very, even without those numbers, you could see how much the heart worked when a person was out of shape compared to someone who was in shape. It was very visual aid.
And he held it, you remember. What did you think about him holding it?
He held it in front of him, and for the time that he held it and just referred to, I thought it was okay.
I do too. I agree.
And the handout that he gave out was a very good handout.
How much did that cost him each?
I'm not sure, but
Well, he's got hardbound covers. He's had the edges trimmed. He's got plastic spiral binding, and it's Xerox 1, 2. Is this important what I'm doing? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 times 10 plus 11 covers or 10 covers in the binding. He spent a lot of money on this and a lot of time, didn't he? And he prepared a separate one for the second, a different one. That's a nice gesture. It's a gesture we appreciate. It's a kind gesture. His introduction of this was appropriate and very nice. The materials and his preparation was also very nice. He didn't just, shove nickels into a Xerox machine and staple it together. It's something that you'll keep. It's something that you'll use quite likely. He hoped that it was. What do you think of his distribution of the materials?
I thought it was appropriate. He took his time in each one.
He took our time. He didn't take his time. Why? Because it was during his speech that he passed them out. I would have liked to have seen Mr. Texera wait until after his speech. I have one of these for each of you. It's different for the ladies from the men. And I'll give it to you as soon as my speech is over. End your speech more forcefully, with stronger finality, then give it to us. But what you did was you ended your speech with a conclusion. You passed them out. You came back up here. We didn't know if we were supposed to applaud or not. Then you started again, and you looked at us. You weren't quite sure if it was over. You were waiting for us to recognize that it was over. And the finality was much weaker than you wanted. We could tell. Okay? So, end it strong, and then give us the materials.
The motivational stats were good when he told us about the weight program, the workout program, the 5DX and the 10DX, I believe it was. And then he gave the handout. And he had the finality, but he just
Didn't deliver it.
Yeah. He was there.
Yeah, that's right. He knew it.
Only get one chance.
What would you say, Mr. Texera?
I think his mouth was a bit dry because he was nervous. And someone told me that the good thing to do is eat some lemon, like lemon drops or lime drops, and that takes care of it.
Yes, it certainly can. There's a lot of little tricks like that. If you want to throw someone off who's speaking, or especially someone who's about to play the trumpet, you want to throw them off, just take a lemon, slice of real lemon and bite into it from the audience. And they'll start doing that. They can't speak as easily. They can't play the trumpet as easily, certainly, because they can't make an embouchure. But if you want to speak like that, an old remedy is a little bit of whiskey and some lemon juice to contradict one another. Open your throat, lower your pitch range a little bit, and work with 5-drop. What else would you say? Mr. Tenzera, comments or questions?
Well, I'm aware of the mistakes that I do make, but unfortunately you only have one chance. And sometimes you may perform it better in the privacy of your own home,
Yes, sir.
but when you get up there, these things can happen.
Yes, sir.
I think that the handout works for the speech itself, and in a way that this handout was more persuasive than Mr. Khan's handout.
Well said, Mr. Byrocker. Excellent comment, and you're right. Why? Because it was prepared with more attention to detail. It was clearly not prepared at the last minute. We believe Mr. Khan when he says, well, it was prepared 30 minutes before class. Yeah, it was as prepared as the rest of the speech was. It was an effective device. It's a thing we're going to keep. You're probably not going to throw this away as quickly as you'll throw away Mr. Kong's or write a phone number on the back of it or something like that. It was well worth the money that he spent on it, and it affects us very well. It's something we appreciate him doing. It's a nice gesture. Thank you, Mr. Byron. Good time. What would you say to Mr. Connolly, your critic of the day? A little loud. Speak a little loud. Mr. Sumpar, you have a comment? No? That's it for Mr. Connolly? No other comments?
I think you point out good and bad parts of the speech. Was specific.
He was specific. He was concrete, and he gave some good examples. Other comments? You're getting off pretty easily, Mr. Connolly. What do you think of the critique?
I thought together we worked well as a team.
Oh, God.
The blessing of safe, abundant tap water we had at the turn of the spigot is taken for granted. Because of this, and partly because water is practically as cheap as dirt, we use it lavishly. On an average, every person uses approximately 87 gallons of water a day, a mere 2 for drinking and cooking. The rest goes to flushing, bathing, washing, etc. This, combined with the amount of water that it takes to cultivate the food that you eat every day, the amount of water it takes to produce the materials you use every day in industry, this estimate climbs to 2,000 gallons of water a day used by every person. That's a lot of water. The question is, where does all this water come from? And is this water limited? Is this a limited resource that requires attention? Well, Southern California demands more water than it can supply itself. Because of this, it has to rely on outside help. We get our water from 2 man-made rivers or aqueducts. One brings water in from Northern California, and the other brings water from the Colorado River. We are also very dependent on the aquifer, which is an underground reservoir. This is what you reach when you tap a well. So that's the answer to where the water comes from. Now, are these sources limited? Very simply, these sources, yes, these sources are limited. Out of all the water that is used every day, only 48% of it is returned to its source by Mother Nature. That means these sources are being depleted little by little right now. So the time is now that people should become conscious of wasting water. Do not waste water. You have to be conscious of this. Because Southern California is dependent on outside sources for their water, in the event of a crisis, we could be virtually cut off from the water we get from the Colorado River and from Northern California. If this was to happen, we would have to rely totally on the aquifer. And because the aquifer table, the groundwater level in the aquifer is being depleted a little bit right now, if we were to switch all our source and draw out of the aquifer, it would be diminished at a much faster rate. Let's see, an example as to how the aquifer can be diminished is, this is a quote from Science World. The most immediate signs of water use and abuse are falling groundwater tables throughout the world. Tucson, Arizona is the largest American city completely dependent on groundwater, because only 35% of the city's water use is recharged by rains. Water tables have already fallen 50 meters in some areas. In parts of Dallas-Fort Worth, water tables have dropped 120 meters just since about 1960. Similar declines are occurring throughout the developing world. This is serious. This means that something has to be done now. We have to conserve water now, not when the crisis is upon us, because it could be too late then. People have to act now and be conscious of conserving water. You may say to yourself, well, we'll never be cut off from the abundant waters of the Colorado River, but this isn't true. The Colorado, in its 1,400-mile journey, it relinquishes such masses of water to farms and cities along its banks that by the time it reaches Mexico, it is a mere trickle of water that disappears into the sand before it even reaches the sea. The river is totally consumed. Here's a visual aid that I've drawn. There are 7 states that are in the Colorado River basin. You can see there's Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. These are the present amounts of water that each state draws from the Colorado River. As you can see, California draws almost 50%. And that's almost half the water out of the Colorado River. Under an agreement reached in 1922, each state is allowed a certain amount of water to be taken from the Colorado River. Since this agreement, Arizona has only been drawing approximately half of the amount of water that it is allowed to have, because it lacks transporting. It can't transport the water to where it's needed. Also, other states along the upper Colorado region haven't been taking their full share of water because they hadn't had need for it yet. California, on the other hand, draws its full share of water, plus all the access that Arizona and these other states haven't been picking up. But this could change very soon. With the increased population boom, these states are going to need more water, and they will draw more water when they need it. And Arizona, by the year 1994, will have completed this vast aqueduct system, which is called CAP, Central Arizona Project, and that will enable them to draw all the water that they're entitled to. When this happens, California won't have as much water to draw from these aqueducts here. They'll be cut down, and they'll only be able to draw approximately 20% of the water in the Colorado River. When this happens, experts predict that the demand for water in the Colorado River will far exceed supply. Considering this and the possibility of drought, and plus the constant population boom out west, Southern California in particular is in for a very tight squeeze. You people can make a difference if you conserve water. Already many Western homeowners are shifting from thirsty eastern type grass to desert plants, cactus, etc., to conserve water, because these desert plants don't require as much water. If everyone in here is conscious of water, that's the main point, just to be conscious. If everyone is conscious and they take shorter showers, and they don't leave the tap water running when you're doing the dishes or brushing your teeth, if you don't wash your cars often, little things like that, they will add up. Eventually, everyone out west, I predict, will have to take the same course that parched Tucson, Arizona has taken, where homeowners there have totally given up cultivating their lawns and have become so conservative that they have cut their per capita consumption by 25% since 1974. That's what's going to happen out here. Now, you may think that your individual effort will not make a difference, but it will. If everyone becomes conscious and tries to conserve water, you get to the point where the sound of running water will alert you and make you want to turn it off, and that's what's going to have to happen. And if you do this correctly, other people will follow from your example, and they'll realize that water should be conserved. So, for your own good and the good of your neighbors and your children, conserve water. It's our most precious resource. day he learns new things. And from when he was a caveman sitting huddled around a fire, the simplest things he couldn't understand. So he accredited to things that he couldn't define. For instance, when he would look at the sun, he had no idea what the sun was, but it gave him light and it gave him warmth. He liked that. And the same with fire. He didn't really understand what that was, but it was warm. It burned if you got too close. And anything that man was unsure of, that he couldn't explain in a simple way to his fellow man, he would put in a category as, we'll figure that out someday. We're not going to deal with that now. And as he grew, and he found more things, and he piled them all into this pile where he didn't understand anything, he finally decided that he's going to have to figure something out to tell him where this stuff belongs. So, in the days of ancient Greece, they invented a lot of gods. For the sun, which they didn't understand at all, they made it a god, the god of sun, and that takes care of it. It's taken care of. For fire, there was a god of fire. Okay, that takes care of that. And they gave everything had a certain category where a god was there, or something that they couldn't understand, but it was just overpowering, overwhelming, and it had control over everything. Now, as times went on, and man became even more wisdom with new technologies and new discoveries, he realized that these things had some kind of physical meaning. That fire wasn't an actual spirit, or it wasn't a god, but it was because of fire. And the same, the same with the sun. He would look at the sun, and he realized that it was fusion going on up there, and it wasn't a god. So they decided that there can't be this many gods, therefore we're going to make one god. And they make one god, and everything else that they found out about, they put, excuse me, they put in those categories.
You idiots! What in the hell are you doing? Thank you, Mr. Mills. Out! Gods?
I couldn't think until you started cracking up there.
Oh, Mr. Connolly, had it been anyone but you. May I please have my 2 slips from the 2 of you?
What was your topic? That's good bullshit.
And what the topic is, if there was no God, man would invent him because I was coming up to, he would
If
invent
there
him
were no
because
God, man would have to invent him. Thank you. Thank you.
You're doing good. You cracked that right there.